Maddie Carter, a 24-year-old security officer, worked the night shift at a prestigious government building in the heart of New York City. The job wasn't her dream, but it paid the bills and kept the hope of a better future alive. Endless nights under the dull hum of fluorescent lights made her feel trapped in an endless loop. One where no one really saw her, no one cared who she was or what she was fighting for. As Maddie prepared to end her shift, the sound of footsteps echoed down the empty hallway. She looked up and froze. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, was walking toward her. There was no time to think, only to react. She stood at attention, nodding in acknowledgement, as she had done for hundreds of people passing through the building each day. But instead of walking past like every other high-ranking official, Trump stopped. He tilted his head slightly, observing her, not with scrutiny but with curiosity. "How's your shift going?" His voice was deep, firm, absent of the polite detachment she expected. Maddie blinked. "It's going fine, sir." Trump studied her for another second, as if seeing more than what was being said. "You look exhausted." She hesitated. Someone like him, with high-stakes meetings, world-altering decisions. Why would he care about a night shift security officer? "Just a long night, sir." She kept her response brief, avoiding his gaze. Trump nodded, then, unexpectedly, tapped the counter lightly with his fingers. "You're doing a great job." 3 simple words, but they cut through the wall Maddie had built around herself. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, heart pounding harder than before. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't invisible. The next morning, as she resumed her shift, the encounter lingered in her mind, but she had no idea that the day would bring another surprise. Trump appeared again, this time in the grand lobby. On his way to a meeting, he once again stopped when he saw her. "I forgot to ask you last night," he said, leaning on the counter. "How long have you been doing this job?" Maddie tensed slightly. She wasn't used to someone of his stature noticing her. 3 years, sir." Trump nodded. "So what's next for you?" She hesitated. No one had ever asked her that before. After a pause, she answered honestly, "I want to move up. Maybe one day be a director of security." Trump raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's stopping you?" Maddie exhaled a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "I don't have the right connections, and to be honest, sometimes I wonder if I'm just wasting my time dreaming." Trump folded his arms, considering her words for a moment. Then, his voice dropped slightly, carrying weight. "Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do something. No one succeeds without challenges." Something shifted inside her. "Keep working hard, Maddie. I have a feeling there's something special about you." This time, when he walked away, Maddie didn't just feel seen. She felt believed in. In the weeks that followed, every time Trump visited the building, he took a moment to talk to her. At first, she felt pressured. Why was someone like him paying attention to her? But gradually, she grew more comfortable. Their conversations became longer, deeper, more meaningful. He asked about her family, her struggles, her dreams. Things she had never voiced aloud before. And the more she spoke, the more she felt something stir inside her. Motivation, purpose, determination. One late night, after a grueling shift, Maddie noticed an envelope on the reception counter as she prepared to leave. Frowning, she picked it up and opened it. Inside was a generous sum of money. And a small note. "You're doing great, Maddie. Keep going." Her breath caught. This wasn't just a tip. This was a message. Trump didn't just see her. He believed in her. Sitting in her car, she gripped the note tightly, staring at it as emotions swelled in her chest. She had spent years feeling like a nameless figure in the background, unseen and unrecognized. But now, someone powerful had acknowledged her worth. And that, no matter how small the gesture, had reignited a fire inside her that she thought had long been extinguished. She wasn't going to fade into the background anymore. She wasn't going to give up. Not ever again. As time passed, the relationship between Maddie Carter and Donald Trump grew into something unexpected. Their conversations were no longer just polite exchanges. Trump genuinely cared. About her work, her dreams, and the challenges she faced. One evening, while Maddie sat at the reception desk in the middle of her shift, she let out a sigh, her mind heavy with thoughts about her future. Trump, just finishing a meeting, happened to walk by. He stopped when he saw her. "Maddie, is something wrong? You look tense." She hesitated, but ultimately decided to be honest. "It's just, I feel stuck, working while trying to study and get ahead, but the harder I try, the more exhausted I feel." Trump nodded, his gaze holding no pity, only understanding. "Anyone chasing a dream will have moments of doubt." He folded his arms, his voice steady but powerful. "But do you know the difference between those who succeed and those who give up?" Maddie remained silent, waiting for his answer. "They keep going, no matter how hard it gets, no matter what stands in their way." His words echoed in her mind. She had thought about this before, but hearing it from someone who had fought through his own struggles to reach the highest level made it hit differently. Trump leaned in slightly. "You can't just sit back and wait for opportunities, Maddie. You have to create them." That sentence lit something inside her. From that day forward, she refused to let her circumstances define her. One afternoon, during a discussion with the security team about safety measures, Trump suddenly turned to Maddie. "You've got hands-on experience. What do you think are the weak points in our security system?" Maddie blinked, caught off guard by the question. She glanced around, considering for a moment, then cautiously responded, "I think we could improve surveillance in blind spots and increase emergency response training for staff." Trump nodded, his eyes lighting up with interest. "Tell me more." Maddie swallowed hard but gathered her courage. She broke down her observations, the flaws in access control, the gaps in coordination between different security teams. She proposed ways to streamline emergency protocols, ensuring a faster, more effective response. Trump listened intently, nodding occasionally. When she finished, he didn't speak right away. He seemed to consider her words carefully. Then, out of nowhere, he smiled. "These are excellent suggestions, Maddie." Her eyes widened. "Really?" Trump smirked slightly. "I don't hand out compliments unless I mean them. You have a sharp mind." He paused for a beat, then added, "Write up a formal proposal. I want to see it on paper." Maddie froze. She could hardly believe it. Trump was taking her ideas seriously. This was an opportunity she had never expected. For days, she poured herself into the proposal. Every detail was meticulously researched, every recommendation based on her first-hand experience. For the first time, she didn't just feel like a security officer. She felt like she was making a real impact. When the moment came to hand Trump her completed proposal, her hands trembled slightly. Would he think it was amateurish? Was she being naive? But as he flipped through the pages, a slow, approving smile crossed his face. "This is fantastic, Maddie." He nodded as he read. "You've thought of everything. I'm impressed." Her chest swelled with pride. Trump didn't just see her as a security guard. He saw her potential. And in that moment, she knew. This was just the beginning of something bigger. But just when she thought she was on the right track, reality hit hard. Out of nowhere, building management announced the hiring of a new security team, and as a result, Maddie's hours were drastically cut. She was stunned. She had worked tirelessly, put everything into her proposal, believing she was finally making progress. And now it felt like it was all being taken away. The new team didn't care about what she had done. They didn't review her ideas. To them, she was just another name on a list, someone to be pushed aside. The sleepless nights returned. She found herself questioning everything. Was it all just a dream? Did she really matter at all? Then, she remembered Trump's words. Never stop, don't let anyone else decide your worth. She couldn't quit. She wouldn't let others snuff out the fire inside her. Late one evening, as she packed her things to leave earlier than usual, Trump appeared. His sharp eyes immediately caught the shift in her demeanor. "Maddie, what's going on?" His voice carried genuine concern. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth. She explained how her hours had been slashed, how everything she had worked for now seemed pointless. "I tried my best, but it feels like no one cares." Trump was silent for a long moment. Then, he met her gaze head-on. "This is the test life is giving you, Maddie. Every great journey has obstacles, but you're not alone." He paused, then said something she could hardly believe. "I need someone with your determination on my team." Maddie's breath caught. "You mean work for you?" Trump smiled. "Exactly. I see something in you, and I won't let talent like yours go to waste." Her heart pounded. This wasn't a dream. This was a real opportunity, and she knew she couldn't let it slip away. The next day, Maddie accepted his offer. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but one thing was certain. Her life had just turned a new page. Maddie Carter never imagined her life could change so fast. From a night shift security officer, she now worked directly with Donald Trump, one of the most powerful men in the world. He had taken her under his wing, mentoring, guiding, and giving her opportunities she had never dared to dream of. With unshakable determination, Maddie quickly adapted to her new role. She found herself in high-stakes situations where one wrong decision could have severe consequences. Surrounding her were seasoned experts, professionals who had done this job for years, and none of them expected a security girl to keep up. At first, the feeling of being out of place nearly crushed her. But Trump didn't let her back down. "Maddie," he said during a tense meeting when she hesitated over a critical decision, "no one is born knowing everything. You learn by stepping in and being willing to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep moving forward." She took a deep breath, nodded, and for the first time that day, she felt like she could do this. Under pressure, Maddie thrived. She proposed real, innovative improvements to security protocols. Ideas that even the most experienced professionals had to admit were brilliant. Step by step, she proved herself. And Trump noticed. He didn't just observe, he acknowledged her successes. And when she failed, he didn't criticize. He helped her learn. For the first time in her life, Maddie felt in control of her future. The girl who once struggled to make ends meet was now contributing to one of the most critical security operations in the country. Maddie's efforts didn't go unnoticed. One day, she received an email that left her speechless. An invitation to speak at a major security conference. She stared at the screen. "This must be a mistake," she muttered. But it wasn't. She had worked relentlessly, and finally, people were starting to take notice. When she told Trump about the invitation, he simply smirked, as if he had known all along this moment would come. "You've been ready for this for a long time, Maddie." But she wasn't so sure. Anxiety consumed her in the days leading up to the conference. She stayed up late preparing her presentation, refining every slide, every statistic. But was it enough? Could a former security officer really stand before top experts and convince them she belonged? The day of the conference, Maddie stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Bright lights beamed down. Hundreds of eyes locked onto her. She swallowed hard, gripping her notes. Then she saw him, Trump, standing at the back of the room, nodding at her. She remembered his words. "Believe in yourself." Taking a deep breath, she began. At first, her voice wavered. But then, her words gained strength. She didn't just speak, she persuaded. She didn't just present data, she told a story. By the time she finished, the room fell silent for a moment. Then, applause erupted, loud and lasting. Maddie stood there, stunned. She had done it. Trump walked up to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You just made your mark, Maddie. This is only the beginning." She looked at him, her heart overflowing with something new, faith in herself. But with advancement came greater pressure. Maddie was no longer just managing security. She was leading, making strategic decisions, bearing the weight of responsibilities far greater than she had ever known. Some days she felt like she was walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and everything could fall apart. Some nights she sat alone in her office, staring at her computer screen, wondering, "Do I really belong here?" And Trump saw it. One late evening, he called her into his office. "Maddie, do you think you're the only one who's ever felt this way?" She looked at him, surprised. "Every great leader has moments like this," Trump said, folding his arms. "The question is, will you let it break you, or will you let it make you stronger?" She looked down, contemplating. "You're not alone," he continued. "You have a team that believes in you." "Including me." Maddie inhaled deeply. For the first time in weeks, she felt lighter. Leadership wasn't about never being afraid. It was about moving forward despite the fear. People in the building started noticing Maddie. They saw her rise, and many began seeking her out for advice. She listened, she helped, because she knew what it felt like to be overlooked, to feel invisible. One day, a young security officer hesitantly approached her. "I want to move up in this field," he said, "but I don't know where to start." Maddie looked at him and saw herself, months ago. She smiled. "Your story can change," she told him. "But first you have to believe it can." And a ripple effect began. Those who once felt unseen, forgotten, stuck, began taking action. Because they saw her, the girl who once stood behind the reception desk, now shaping the future of national security. One evening, as Maddie prepared to leave the building, she ran into an old friend. The person froze, eyes wide in disbelief. "No way! Maddie, is that really you?" She smiled. "It's me." They talked for a while, and as Maddie shared her journey, she saw something in her friend's eyes. Not just surprise, admiration. And at that moment, Maddie realized she had come so much farther than she ever thought possible. And with the right belief, the right perseverance, nothing is impossible. Just when Maddie Carter thought she had finally found her rhythm, a new challenge emerged. Donald Trump personally entrusted her with the boldest assignment yet, overseeing a complete security overhaul. Maddie had never imagined she would come this far. From a night shift security officer, she now stood at the helm of one of the most critical security projects in the government, a project that could redefine the entire protection system of one of the country's most vital facilities. But this challenge was unlike anything she had ever faced. This time, Maddie wasn't just executing orders, she was leading. The project demanded vision, strategy, and decisiveness. She had to collaborate with seasoned experts, coordinate multiple teams, and ensure that every detail was flawless. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. But Maddie couldn't let fear control her. Every day, she met with security advisors, reviewed data, and analyzed every potential threat. Every night, she sat in front of her computer screen, her vision blurred from exhaustion, questioning whether she was truly capable of carrying out this mission. Doubt crept into her mind. Then, one late night, Trump appeared. He studied her for a moment, then asked directly, "Maddie, are you okay?" She hesitated before answering honestly, "I'm not sure if I can do this." Trump pulled up a chair, sitting across from her. "Listen," he said, his voice calm but firm. "No one is born an expert. Even the best have made mistakes, but what sets them apart is that they never give up. They push forward with unwavering determination." She looked up at him, frozen by his words. Trump continued, You don't need to have all the answers right now, Maddie. You just need to keep going." That sentence ignited something inside her. She couldn't stop now. She had come too far to turn back. With a newfound determination, Maddie threw herself back into her work. She no longer feared making mistakes. She learned from them, adapted and moved forward. She no longer hesitated when making big decisions. She trusted her instincts. She led her team with confidence, pushing everyone forward with her. And then, after months of relentless work, the project finally reached its defining moment. The new security system was officially implemented. The results exceeded all expectations. The facility became safer and more efficient. The security infrastructure was upgraded, prepared for any potential threat. Maddie's leadership was recognized, not just by her team, but by Donald Trump himself. When everything was complete, Trump walked up to her, his expression filled with pride. "Maddie," he said, his voice steady and strong, "you did it." This time, there was no hesitation in his words. "You thought of everything. I knew you could do it." A wave of emotion surged through Maddie. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself. She was no longer just a nameless security officer. She had proven that with perseverance, anything is possible. As Maddie reflected on her journey, she realized this story wasn't just about career success. It was about transformation, it was about resilience, it was about empowering others. She had mentored countless individuals, inspiring those who once felt overlooked. She had turned her own journey into a source of motivation for others. Maddie Carter was no longer just a security officer turned leader. She was a symbol of determination and perseverance. She had built a legacy of hope, a reminder that with the right mindset, anyone can overcome obstacles and achieve greatness. And she knew this was only the beginning. If this story has touched your heart, we'd love for you to share its message by liking and sharing it with your friends, helping us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers, which means the world to us and allows us to create more meaningful stories for you. Don't forget to share your thoughts about the story and let us know which city you're watching from. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in our next story.